Top Med Talk. Hello, welcome to Top Med Talk. I'm Andy Cumpstey, and it's day 2 here at the Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine World Congress, or EBPOM World Congress here in London. It's been another really busy day here at the meeting. At the moment, most of the delegates are off doing workshops with our various sponsors. So there's a number of those going on around the conference. But another key part of the conference is the abstract presentations, and I'm really delighted we've got 2 people who successfully submitted and had accepted abstracts to come and present here at the meeting. So why don't I ask you to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so hi, thanks for having me on. I'm Sandy. I'm an anaesthetics and intensive care doctor in Southampton. I'm really pleased to be here.
Fantastic.
My name is Miriam van der Velde. I'm from the Netherlands, and I work as a lecturer and researcher at the University of Applied Sciences in Utrecht.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both for joining us and giving up a bit of the morning to come here on Top Med Talk. It's great to have you both here with us. And you're both here to present abstracts of work that you've done and submitted. So Sandy, maybe if I start with you first, why don't you give us a quick summary of what you're here to present?
Yeah, so we've been doing some work recently with some colleagues in University California Irvine Medical Center and Edwards Life Sciences as a partner in that, basically looking at the rate of intraoperative hypotension in University California Irvine and seeing how that's changed over the years, because I know it's something you guys have spoken about on Top Med Talk a couple of times.
We have, yes.
And it's something that we've spoken about more, but what we wanted to look at is, has that actually changed what we see on the ground? And what we found is that in that particular setting, the rate doesn't seem to have changed over the years, and that maybe it's time for us to not just talk about it, but to maybe find new ways of trying to change rates. There are things out there in literature that say it can be done, but it's just, we wanted to trigger that conversation of maybe we should be doing more to actually change the rate of intraoperative hypotension and not just measure it.
And how did you look at that, Sandy?
So it was a sort of a big data science project. I'm a clinician data scientist, and the guys at UC Irvine pulled from their electronic record essentially all of the cases. So we were looking at around 55,000 different anaesthetics, and we were able to compute exactly how long people had a low blood pressure, so kind of minute by minute, and then work out the cumulative dose of intraoperative hypotension using a number of different metrics. But yeah, once we did that, we then made a kind of complex computer model, or something called an Aramax model. And what we used that to show is that basically the rate was stationary across time. When that happened, whether it was in 2017 or 2021, didn't seem to affect whether you liked to get hypotension or not.
Oh, wow. And how many people did you include in the study?
So as I say, it was about 55,000 anaesthetics from about 36,000 patients. So some patients were having more than one operation over time. But yeah, still a really big number of cases and giving a really interesting granular insight with that unique thing of it being over 5 years.
Excellent. We might come back to that in a second. But Miriam, why don't you tell us, you're here to present a different abstract, aren't you? What work have you been doing in Utrecht?
We have developed an app, an MRT app, for patients to prepare for major surgery. And with that app, we did a multicenter randomized controlled trial in 4 hospitals in the Netherlands to evaluate the effectiveness of the app. So does the app really help patients to prepare better, and do they recover better after surgery? That was our question.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we did see that patients in our intervention group, they recovered a bit better than the patients in our control group. But it was a significant difference, but not a clinically relevant difference. So we didn't find what we hoped to find. But we did see that patients were more satisfied with perioperative care. So they were very satisfied with the app, but they were also more satisfied with perioperative care than patients in our control group.
And what sort of things was this app asking them to do or getting them to do before?
Yeah, the app was focusing on risk behavior. So we focused on increasing physical activity prior to surgery, muscle strengthening, protein-rich nutrition, and also alcohol and smoking cessation. But it was really a standalone app, so no other healthcare professionals were involved. So
okay, so literally the intervention was the app or no app essentially, nothing else.
Yes. So in addition to usual care, according to the hospital guidelines, yeah.
And how many people did you manage to recruit in the end?
369 patients. Yeah.
Excellent. Over what sort of time period?
Well, we started this randomized controlled trial in the COVID period, so it was a bit difficult in the beginning. But I think we did 2 years of inclusion. The difficulty was in the COVID period that patients were scheduled for surgery just a short period in front of before surgery. And that made it really difficult to include patients because you want patients to be able to use that app not only 2 days, but at least for a couple of days. So or a couple of weeks.
Excellent. Well done to both of you for what sound like really worthwhile and impactful projects. And you both presented these projects yesterday at the first day of the conference, is that right?
Yes.
So how long did you get to present these projects?
It was a 3-minute presentation with 3 slides.
Right.
Excluding the title slide. Yeah. So it was really quick fire abstracts.
Very punchy. Yeah.
Yeah, really, I think, Miriam, you did a fantastic job of keeping to time. I certainly found it really hard to fit what I wanted to say into 3 minutes. So it's a real skill, that. And I think even just making the slides condensed and presenting what are sometimes massive projects in such a short period of time. So I take my hat off to those of you that maybe did a better job on that than me. But yeah, it's a great opportunity for us as more junior researchers earlier on in our career to stand up and speak. And what was great this year is we had actually like really good numbers in the auditorium for the abstracts. Some conferences you go to, it's maybe, just you, the judges, and one person eating their lunch in the corner. But actually here we were in the main auditorium on the main stage with a really good audience. So yeah, a great opportunity.
And hopefully supportive questions for that audience. It didn't feel like a firing squad being on the stage getting critiqued all the time, or was it quite hard?
No, it was okay, I think. And about the 3 minutes, I think maybe it's an advantage for me because I'm not a native English speaker, so I prepared really well because it's harder to improvise. And I think that's your maybe problem, that if you're fluent in English, then you improvise more and then you tend to tell a bit more about your slides. So I think maybe that was my advantage.
It's definitely, I think we often, as native English speakers, Sandy and I, for example, often underestimate the impact of coming to a different country and speaking in a different language. But we're very fortunate to be able to speak English as our natural language. But to stand up and do 3 minutes it's impressive. How many people were in this session in total? How many people were presenting?
We had 12 people presenting the abstracts. Yeah,
and they were from a mixture of countries, weren't they? From all over Europe and internationally, I think.
Yeah, I think that if you look at the kind of wider poster, so those are the 12 oral presentations. There's also all the posters that were presented, and you can see those are from all over the world. You've got people from the UK, from the rest of Europe, North America, Asia, Australia, New Zealand. It's a real, it's a world congress.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were both presenting research sort of projects, weren't you, really? But were all the projects presented research projects, or were there other things presented as well?
There were also some more implementation projects presented, and I think it was also a really nice mix of different kinds of abstracts that were presented, and also within different fields, because I think also what we presented is really different, more the anesthesia side of it, and I'm more from a physical therapy background. So yeah.
And I know that in the past we've had trainees presenting at this meeting in the abstract session. We've also had consultants presenting in this session for successful abstracts and projects. So it's a real mixture of backgrounds and people that come to this session. But there may be a number of people listening to this podcast at home who are thinking, oh, I'm not really sure what's involved in that. So maybe could you both talk me through the process of how you get to this stage? And obviously you've got to do your project first and whatever your project might be. But if you're thinking this might be something I could submit to an EBPOM meeting, what's the process? How do you go through that and end up here presenting your work?
It's actually, it's not a huge amount of work. If you've done the work, the difficult bit is the project. If you've done the project, then actually what you've got to do is write, essentially, I think it was a 500-word abstract, and you could include 2 figures if you wanted to. So, if you think if you're ever going to write this up into a paper or submit it to a journal, you're always going to need that. So actually a punchy abstract, writing that, I found it to be quite useful to crystallize in my mind some things about the project, and then you submit it with a couple of figures and go through the judging process and see where you land. But actually the bar for submitting, it's not too challenging. It was all online, weren't any sort of difficult interviews. I wasn't being grilled. I didn't feel, I haven't had reviewer number 2 come back with lots of awkward questions and comments. It was just reviewed and then you get the outcome. So yeah, I found it pretty straightforward.
And then for bringing the presentation to here, Miriam, you get the outcome by email, presumably saying, well done, you've been selected. And then you get your 3 slides and your timings.
Well, there was a step in between.
Right,
because after the abstract, and you went on to the online poster gallery, that's right? And you had to submit a poster for the online poster gallery. And from the poster gallery, 12 abstracts were chosen to be presented here at the conference.
Excellent. Yeah. And I believe you're coming back to do another version of the presentation later in the week, is that right?
Yeah, that's tomorrow,
So that's
that's the final 5, I guess, and they're presenting tomorrow at the last day of the conference. And then it's an 8-minute presentation with 8 slides.
Excellent.
So a bit more time to elaborate about the research.
So very well done on getting selected to the final 5. That's a fantastic achievement in itself, and I hope it goes well tomorrow.
I hope so.
I've got to ask, what's it like being at the meeting as a presenter, and what's it like presenting on a World Congress stage in front of all these people?
I really like presenting, and I also like to put in a lot of work to make my presentation or my slides nice to look at. But there's always a bit of nerves just before you go on stage. Yeah, but I really like it. And it's also a good chance to get in touch with people about your research. It's a conversation starter if you do a presentation and people come up to you after. So,
Sandy?
Yeah, I would completely echo that. I've had a few kind of entirely spontaneous conversations where people have come up to me and asked questions. You meet potential collaborators. I mean, we had a couple of years back there where we didn't really do this in person. It was all online. And don't get me wrong, it's great to still be able to have a meeting online, but nothing quite like being in the room with the people. And as I say, I've met potential collaborators just off the back of speaking there that I then come off the stage and talk to people, and you can spark some really interesting conversations, get some new ideas. And yeah, I love being here, and I'm really glad to be in person.
And just as we're talking, there's people starting to fill back into the exhibitors hall now around us as they're finishing the workshops this morning, and we're feeling the buzz start to build up again in this quite busy conference hall. And you've both talked quite nicely about the benefits of being here in person. And there's a number of people who can't make these events in person and they still log in online. I think that's really valuable. But often people talk about one of the barriers coming to these meetings being the cost of coming to these meetings. And it's interesting that, so Sandy, you're based in the UK. Miriam, you've come from overseas for this meeting. So presumably, cost is an important factor in this. Is it worth the cost?
Yeah, I also agree with Sandy that I really prefer to be at a conference in person. It makes it so much easier to get in touch with other people. And I think that's also, really the benefit of attending a conference like this. So yeah, I really like it. And I think I'm fortunate because I have a grant for doing my PhD, which includes also some of these things. So the costs are...
The costs are not something to be ignored. It's a factor to consider. But I mean, Sandy, from a UK perspective, are there any funds that trainees can access? Are there any ways to support those costs?
Well, that was just what I was going to say, actually. Again, I like Miriam, I'm fortunate in that I get some funding through my fellowship, but actually there are small grants, travel grants, study grants from various organisations. Look to your kind of professional learned bodies, even look to your training authorities, your hospitals. Because remember, standing up on a stage here and talking about the great work your hospital is doing, that's good for the hospital. So ask around, see if there are pots of money. Many universities have pots of money to support junior researchers coming to things like this. I think if you speak to senior academics, they recognise the value of these conferences and recognise the value of getting their juniors along to them. So, if you want to come to one and you're worried about the cost, I think you should just look around, see if you can find someone to support you, and then you can get a great time in London for a few days with someone else paying for your hotel, which is always nice.
And so we're talking a lot about academic funding there, but there's also, I think, there's non-academic funding that trainees can access as well. So in the UK, we have study budgets, study leave processes. But I think it's also probably worth highlighting, as well as cost, there's the value of these meetings. And I've certainly found over the years that cost and value are not necessarily the same thing. I don't know if you've got any thoughts about that, or if the values you're getting from being here in person.
I mean, I think you and I, Andy, have been coming to the EBPOM meetings for a number of years. And I think off the back of that, I now feel like I come back and I see the same people. And I've now got a network across the country where when I finish my training and I'm looking to jobs, I might be thinking about different parts of the country. I've got people I'd be happy to email. I could have a frank conversation with. Or if I just wanted some help or some other ideas or some shared learning. And that's only possible by developing those relationships that I don't feel like I would get on the end of a Zoom call. So yeah, I think there's definite, as you say, cost and value. Value is really hard to measure. The cost is easy, but the value you get from it really depends massively.
Fantastic. Any final words from either before we close up and go get some lunch?
Thanks for having us on. It's great to talk about the work, and I'm really looking forward to the next couple of days here.
What's coming up in the next couple of days that's caught your eye in the remaining sessions?
So there's a session about implementation, which I think is going to be really interesting, and also one about the economics of rehabilitation. So how can you fund it all? And what I noticed is that it's also really different from that international perspective, because our healthcare system is very different in all the countries. So it's going to be interesting to hear about that.
Fantastic. I think it's really, really good hearing those international perspectives of these sort of meetings. One of the things that I definitely value most about being here as well. So on that note, thank you both for your time. Thank you both for coming and speaking to us on Top Med Talk. Very well done again for giving the presentations you've given so far, and good luck for your presentation tomorrow, Miriam.
Thank you.
Thank you at home for listening to us. As always, you can find this conversation and all our other conversations on our app, on our website, or on your podcasting platform of choice. Please do follow us on our social media accounts on Facebook, on X or formerly Twitter, and on LinkedIn. And if you're on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe, because it helps keep us free at the point of listening. Thank you both very much again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Top Med Talk. Thanks for downloading Top Med Talk. Don't forget to subscribe, check us out on YouTube, and of course on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook and X. Also, it's important to remember that Top Med Talk is the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that, and the way to do that is ebpom.org. Check out our website and find out about some of the incredible conferences we're going to be arranging across the year. ebpom.org.